Here is scene 1 expanded to about 1,000 words, with no headings, just pure narrative. The restaurant was winding down for the night, its golden lights dimming into a kind of soft, late-evening melancholy. At this hour, only a few servers lingered, clearing tables with slow, end-of-shift movements. The chandeliers, once bright with the chatter and clinking of silverware beneath them, now hovered peacefully over a nearly empty dining hall. It was the perfect time for someone who preferred silence, not that silence was a choice for Adrian Hale. It was the only world he had ever known. He sat alone near the window, where he could watch the city lights pulse through the glass. Cars crawled by like illuminated beetles, their trails smearing faint glows across the street. The world looked loud, even if he couldn't hear it. Sound, to him, was something other people lived in the way fish live in water, completely and without thinking. He had grown up outside that current, observing everything with a quiet curiosity and a sharp, disciplined awareness. His meals were usually solitary. Tonight wasn't any different. The waitstaff knew he preferred minimal interaction. They greeted him with soft smiles, exaggerated lip movements, gestures he had come to appreciate. They placed his dishes gently so he could see the motion, not feel the jarring vibrations. Respectful, predictable, controlled, but as he cut into his meal, he felt a presence, not loud, not intrusive, just warm. Movement in his peripheral vision made him glance up. A young woman was cleaning the far end of the dining hall, methodically wiping down tables. Her uniform was simple and slightly worn, her hair tied back with a practical elastic band. But what caught his eye wasn't her. It was the baby strapped to her chest in a soft fabric sling, nestled closely against her as she moved. The baby couldn't have been more than 8 months old, round-cheeked and bright-eyed. He was quiet, surprisingly so. His gaze drifted lazily around the room as if absorbing everything at once, the flickering lights, the swinging door to the kitchen, the gentle sway of his mother's movements. Adrian didn't mean to stare, but children fascinated him. They reacted to the world without filter or hesitation, and he admired that simplicity. Adults tried too hard to hide what they felt. Children simply existed in truth. The baby's eyes caught his. And held. Something about the directness of the child's gaze made Adrian straighten almost imperceptibly. The little one blinked, then tilted his head as though studying him. A tiny fist popped out of the sling and waved in a clumsy arc. Adrian lifted a hand in return. The baby squealed, apparently delighted, and wriggled excitedly. The mother jumped, startled by her son's sudden movement. She turned sharply, looking first at the baby, then at Adrian, her eyes widening in alarm as though she feared he'd been disturbed. He shook his head gently and offered a reassuring smile. She mouthed, sorry, clearly, her lips forming wide, slow shapes out of instinct rather than practice. She probably had no idea he relied on lip reading, she was simply being polite. He waved a dismissive hand. No problem, it was nothing, but the baby was not done. Each time his mother turned away to continue cleaning, the infant craned his neck, leaning dangerously far out of the sling to look back at Adrian. His mother kept adjusting him, pulling him close, whispering something he couldn't hear but could see in the movement of her lips. Stop that, hold still, you're going to fall. Adrian found himself smiling, something he rarely did in public. He returned to his meal, but his attention flicked back whenever the baby squirmed again. The little one was determined. Twice he stretched toward Adrian as though trying to reach him, and twice his mother pressed him firmly against her chest with an apologetic expression. Then it happened. She reached up to adjust a chair, leaning slightly forward. The baby leaned too, but this time, farther than he ever had. Too far. Adrian's fork clattered softly against his plate as instinct jolted through him. In a split second, the infant's tiny body shifted downward, gravity tugging him forward out of the loosened sling. The mother's gasp flew across the room, frozen in time, her hand missing the strap by a heartbeat. Adrian was already moving. The world narrowed into slow motion, the dim lights, the drifting dust particles, the reflection of his own hand as it shot forward. He reached the baby before he hit the edge of the table, catching him against his palm and forearm with surprisingly steady control. The baby didn't cry. He blinked at Adrian, startled for only a second before breaking into a relieved, gurgly grin. The mother's footsteps slapped hurriedly against the polished floor as she rushed toward them, breathless and shaking. Her hands fluttered over her baby's head, face, arms, as if checking every inch for harm. Oh my God, thank you, she mouthed rapidly, tears of pure fright welling in her eyes. Adrian shook his head. He lifted one hand slowly and signed, it's okay. He's safe. Confusion flickered in her expression. She didn't understand sign language. But she recognized the reassurance. She exhaled shakily and pressed her forehead briefly to her son's. When she tried to lift the baby from his arms, the little one resisted. Both adults froze as the baby reached out again, not for his mother, not for her sling, but for Adrian's throat. A tiny palm pressed gently against the base of Adrian's neck. The baby let out a high, chirping laugh, bright and delighted. Adrian didn't hear it, but he felt it. The vibration rippled through his throat like a soft, fluttering drumbeat, delicate yet profound. It moved through him in a gentle wave, alien, unexpected, impossible. His breath hitched. The baby laughed again, this time with more force, and the vibration thrummed against his skin like a miniature echo of life itself. It was the first time in 33 years that Adrian Hale felt sound. He stood there, unmoving, eyes widening as if the universe had cracked open. A warmth cooled in his chest, shock, awe, something like grief, something like wonder. The mother watched, bewildered, unsure what was happening. The baby's hand remained on his throat, fingers splayed, innocent and open. Adrian placed his own hand over the tiny one, holding it there, letting the vibration seep into him like a revelation he never dared to hope for. And in that moment, in a silent restaurant, under fading lights, something shifted inside him. The world was still quiet, but it was no longer empty. Here is scene 2 expanded to about 1,000 words, with no headings and seamless narrative. Mara sat awkwardly across from Adrian, unsure whether she should even be there. The scent of expensive food lingered in the air, drifting between them like something she wasn't sure she was allowed to breathe. She held her hands in her lap, fingers trembling slightly, while her son rested comfortably in Adrian's arms, as though he belonged there, as though he had always belonged there. Adrian wasn't looking at her. His attention rested entirely on the tiny boy babbling on his lap. Every small sound the baby made sent faint vibrations into his throat or chest or arms, and each one made Adrian pause with a kind of reverent astonishment. He kept his movements slow, almost ceremonial, as though afraid the moment would dissolve if he handled it too roughly. The restaurant's quiet hum surrounded them, clinking plates from the back, the shuffle of a server counting tips, the soft swish of a mop somewhere down the hall. Adrian couldn't hear any of it, but he could feel the baby's laughter. Mara couldn't stop staring. She'd never seen a billionaire look so fragile. Beautifully fragile, like someone experiencing rain for the first time after a lifetime in drought. The baby reached up again, placing a tiny palm directly on Adrian's throat. Another gurgly laugh slipped out, full of joy, childish and imperfect and utterly free. Adrian's eyes fluttered shut, his breath unsteady as he absorbed the sensation. When he opened them, they shone with a brightness that startled her. She mouthed carefully, "Are you okay?" He blinked, then nodded, though his expression was anything but casual. He took the notepad from earlier, still on the table from his meal, and wrote a single line. "I've never felt sound before today." Her hand flew to her mouth. She whispered, "Never," before realizing he couldn't hear the word. She repeated it slowly so he could read her lips. "Never." He shook his head again. Mara swallowed hard. She was used to long nights, to exhaustion, to cleaning floors until her knees ached. But nothing about this moment fit into the worn edges of her life. She wasn't supposed to be sitting with a millionaire while her child performed miracles without understanding them. She wasn't supposed to feel honored. Or seen. But she did. Her son made another soft babble, pressing his cheek against Adrian's chest, comfortable enough to settle in as though it were bedtime. Adrian hesitated for a moment, then carefully brought his hand up to support the baby's back. The baby sighed, a tiny, warm exhale. It vibrated faintly against him. Adrian's lips parted, the smallest gasp escaping though he couldn't hear it. It was instinct, human. He scribbled again. "It feels like touching light." Mara felt her throat tighten. She had no words to match that. No world to compare it to. She simply nodded, because there was nothing else she could do without crying. She tried to take her son back, but the child whined and clung to Adrian's shirt with surprising strength. "Oh, sweetheart, come on," she mouthed to him, embarrassed. "You're heavy. Let the nice man eat." Adrian shook his head gently and wrote, "Let him stay, please." Mara froze. No one said please to her at her job. Not the guests, not the managers, not even some of the other staff. She sank slowly back into her seat. A server passed by, raising his eyebrows at the sight but wisely staying silent. Adrian gestured for 2 more plates, one for Mara, one for her baby if needed. When the food arrived, she stared at the plate as if it were a priceless artifact she wasn't allowed to touch. Adrian pushed it a little closer, patient. She mouthed, "I can't pay for this." He tilted his head, eyes soft with confusion, then wrote, "It's dinner. With me. No payment." Her cheeks flushed warm. The baby, meanwhile, had discovered Adrian's tie and was tugging at it with clumsy, excited fingers. Adrian let him. He didn't flinch, didn't seem to mind at all. The tiny pulls created vibrations through the silk, and even those small motions made him pause as though collecting them like treasures. Mara watched her son with a blend of pride and disbelief. He was usually shy with strangers, timid even. But now he was fearless, bold, open. It was as if he sensed something in Adrian, a loneliness perhaps, or a quiet that mirrored the gentle spaces inside himself. Finally, the baby began to doze, eyelids drooping, mouth slightly open. His exhaustion made his tiny body sink fully against Adrian's chest in trust. Adrian froze, almost afraid to breathe, staring down at the sleeping child as though he had never held anything more precious. Mara rose halfway from her seat. "I'll take him," she mouthed. Adrian's hand lifted, not urgently, but softly. "Stay." She eased back again. He shifted the baby slightly so the small head rested securely against him. He looked up, catching her gaze, and wrote, "Thank you for letting me feel this. I didn't know what I was missing. But now I do." His handwriting wasn't perfectly steady. It carried emotion. Mara blinked rapidly, fighting the heaviness behind her eyes. She had met wealthy people before. Most were impatient, loud, or too busy to breathe the same air as workers. But this man, silent, observant, gentle, felt more vulnerable than anyone she'd ever encountered. He wasn't made of marble or steel. He was made of quiet longing. She mouthed back, "He likes you. That's all." Adrian shook his head. He wrote, "It's more than that. He changed something in me tonight. Maybe everything." Her breath caught. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply existed in the same peaceful space, Adrian with her baby nestled against him, Mara with her fingers curled tightly around the edge of the table to keep herself steady. He studied her face then, not with the sharp, assessing gaze of businessmen but with gentle curiosity. She looked tired, yes, but beautiful in a quiet, unpolished way. Strong. He could see the exhaustion in her shoulders, the weight she carried alone, the resilience in her eyes. He wrote one final line, sliding the notepad closer to her. "Have dinner with me again. Both of you, not as a guest, as company." Her lips parted in surprise. She pointed at herself, mouthing silently, "Why?" Adrian didn't write this time. He lifted one hand, placed it lightly over the baby's back, and then tapped his own chest, near the heart. He didn't need sound to say what he felt. And when Mara finally nodded, slow, uncertain, emotional, Adrian's smile grew soft and warm. He didn't dine alone anymore. Not tonight. And, he hoped with a flicker of something new and bright inside him. Not ever again.